my brother Don this afternoon and allowing me to say a few words about it. Don was one of the finest athletes I've ever seen and was also gifted with a great sense of humor and just a wonderful guy. My brother Orny and I saw him play wherever he played ball in the minors, and people often said they'd never seen brothers get along as well as we did. I'm sure most of you know that Don was born and raised in Wheaton. As far as I know, he's the only Wheatonite with a World Series ring. He started his career, I mentioned, with the St. Louis Cardinals, and he was chosen from a group of men of about 400 down in Sycamore, Illinois. They had to appreciate his love for baseball because they started out, his salary was $75 a month, and they had to pay room and board out of that and everything else. But thank goodness people would take up collections for some of the players if they had done well, and this helped Don survive. He did well his first year and made the All-Star team, and then World War II came along, and that wiped out about 3.5 years. He was lucky enough to play for the Army Air Corps team in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. His manager there was a man named Art Bramhall, and Art was one of the few athletes that had played professional baseball, basketball, and football. He was a radio announcer after the war and often said that he had played with a lot of the greats, Ruth, Garrett, DiMaggio, etc., but he'd never seen anyone hit a baseball as far as Don had. He'd tell a story of Don hitting a home run on top of a 2-story building down the right field line, which is 470 feet. After the war, Don worked his way up through the minors, and when he finally made it to the Cardinals in 1951, they sold him to the Yankees. He was sent down to Kansas City and had a couple of great years down there. Don was voted the most popular player in 1951 and 52, and the most valuable player in the league in 1952. He made the All-Star team as well both years. He came up to the Yankees the next year and became the starting first baseman. On or about the All-Star break, he was leading the league. His batting average is .375, ahead of Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, and many other great players. Don finished up the season with a .297 average, and he became their best pinch hitter over Johnny Mize and a few others, and helped them win an unprecedented 5th World Series in a row, a record that will probably never be equaled or broken. Don always tried to emulate 2 ball players, and they were Enos Slaughter and Stan Musial. Enos because he was always a hustler, known as the best hustler in baseball, and Musial because he seldom argued with an umpire. This trait showed up in the 6th game of the World Series when Don was called out on strikes in the 9th inning. Don never complained to the umpire, and when the game was over, Hall of Fame Dodger catcher Roy Campanella came over to Yankee dugout and told Don that his call was the worst called 3rd strike he'd ever seen. My wife and I were married in July of that year. Applause. And Don sent us a telegram saying he was going to hit a home run for us for our wedding. I bought a tribute the next morning and looked for the box score of the game. The caption read, "Yanks win 2-1. When I saw the low score in the caption, I said, "Whoops, wrong page." I was, where am I here? I'll look at it eventually. I figured that he probably was unable to do it because there's a low score like that. So as I read further, the article went on to say that Don Bowie hit a home run in the 7th inning with a man on base to win the ball game 2-1. Naturally, we were thrilled to pieces over it. Don had a lot of tough breaks in his life. One of those missing out on being a baseball pension by 1.5 weeks and out playing time in the majors. But the worst one came when he had a stroke in 1993, which left him paralyzed on one side and unable to speak. Don passed away in 1996, and that was a blessing that he was finally relieved of his suffering. Don was never a financial success, but if success were measured by the number of friends that he had made, he'd be a millionaire many times over. Thank you very much for